In this video, we're going to be talking about how to make money freelancing. Coming up next. Welcome everybody. My name is Dee Burks and this is Retirement Rescue, where we talk about how to make money, save money, and live well in retirement. In today's video, we're going to be talking about freelancing, how you get started, what things to look for, and how you make money. Now, I'll be honest, freelancing is one of my favorite topics. It's how I got started working from home and moved on to ghostwriting, and now I can work full-time from home as a writer, and you possibly can too. But even if you have a full-time job, freelancing is a great side gig. It can produce great income, it allows you to expand your skill set. There are many, many benefits. The first thing we're going to talk about is the fact that you don't need any experience or any super technical gear to get started freelancing. You can start exactly where you are, and we're going to talk about how to assess your skill set, but really the only technical things you need to get started are a laptop and a phone, or a desktop and a phone. Theoretically, you probably could do it completely from your phone, but you do have to write articles and that sort of thing, which is kind of impractical on a phone. But that's up to you. But I started with a laptop and a phone. And that's really all you need. You don't need anything special, anything fancy. That's all you need to get started, and you can go ahead and begin freelancing. Now, many people have this idea that they've got to have like a writing degree or a degree at all, or they've got to have some sort of certification to prove that they know what they're doing. No, you absolutely don't. All you have to do is to be able to research and understand the subject matter that you're presenting on. That's it. And if you ever did a paper in high school, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, the other side of that coin is you do have to understand how to market yourself and get yourself out there. And we will talk a little more in depth about that. But to get started, you really don't have to have any sort of incredible knowledge base about writing. You can just get started right where you're at. And the proof comes in the doing. I mean, even those people who do have, the MFA degree and creative writing degree and all this stuff, doesn't mean they can do the job. This is one of those industries where the playing field is level. You can just jump in there, and if you can prove you can do it, hey, you can make money. That's what makes it so wonderful. And it really doesn't matter your age. Because when you're working remotely, especially via email and via phone, people don't know how old you are. So it doesn't matter if you're young or if you're retired. It does not matter. As long as you can prove you know something about the subject matter and can present it in a professional format, that's all they care about. Now, one thing I will caution you about, you have to behave like a professional. And I know I talk about this in my ghostwriting video, but it is so important. You have to be a professional. You have to be accessible. You have to respond to emails. You have to communicate. You have to be a professional. They have to perceive you as a professional if you expect to get paid as a professional. So that's very, very important to understand. This is a job. This isn't just funsies, and it's certainly not for your client. They need the work done. That's why they're paying for it. So you really have to behave as a professional. So you have to understand how to invoice. You have to understand how the corporate payment systems work. If you're working in government, doing something for government, you have to understand how the purchase order system works for you to get paid. I mean, hey, everybody wants to get paid. So you need to understand those things and behave like a professional. So I'm not going to lecture anymore about that, but believe me, huge. Now, for you to figure out what you can do as far as freelancing, because honestly, there are so many areas of freelance. Your first step is to assess your natural knowledge base. What do you already know about? Are you a stay-at-home mom? Do you want to write about raising kids? Do you homeschool? Do you want to write about that? Are you a rancher, a cattle person? You can write about that. Do you know old cars, classic cars? You can write about that. Have you been in the world of finance? You can write about that. Have you worked for a bank or worked for any sort of finance company? That's a great area to be in. Do you have technical skill? Like, are you scientific? Have you worked in the fields of nuclear engineering? Because there's lots of opportunity there as well. So the first thing you should do is make a list of all those things that you have knowledge of. And this can include religious studies. If you're a religious person, almost every religion has magazines. If you are a gardener, there are tons of gardening magazines. If you know things about the weather, if you know, just any area you could possibly think of, there is a niche there that you can fill as a freelancer. So make that list. Make a list of absolutely everything you know anything about. Absolutely everything. Did you used to work for the railroad? Did you used to work in the field of mining? What are your skill sets? For me, my skill set was in HR and in finance. So those are my main skill sets. Now I can write about lots of things in addition to that and have, but that's where I started. I made a list. What can I do? What can I do? And when I started, this was truly a side gig. I had a full-time job. I just wanted to earn a little bit of extra money. Now, one of the first things I did when I was starting was create some samples. I did a sample article. I did a sample press release. I did several samples of different things that I could do because I thought, if someone wants a sample of my writing, and they often do want a sample, I wanted to have those ready. Now these days, there are a lot of free, either online or local magazines, newspapers that will allow you to submit articles. That is a great way to show that you have, number one, published something, even if it was for free. They don't know that. Number one, you have published something and you're a professional. So if you have that opportunity to work for a local newspaper or submit something, even on an editorial page, please do so. That gives you instant credibility as a freelancer. You've had something published, it's professional. You can send them a copy of the clipping. I just scan them in as PDFs. It's very easy to do. And then when someone wanted a sample, I just clicked and added the samples, and they could see exactly what I could do. That's very useful. And when you're preparing to do this, you need to have a few of those samples, either things you've published or samples of things that could be published. So you will have them to send to people if they ask. So now let's say you've made your list of your skill sets, the areas you want to work in, and you've developed a few samples or maybe even published something in a local magazine or newspaper, and you have that clipping. Now where do you find work? Well, number one, the best place to start is local. Are there realtors who need marketing copy? Is there someone who needs a brochure, needs text for a brochure? Do they need text for their website? Is there some way you can help them with an article or with a blog post? A lot of local businesses have blog posts. Start local. Now, if you start local, you're going to have local money too, which is generally much smaller than national magazines or things of that sort. But you've got to start somewhere. So don't be afraid to start local. Network with those people. Get to know your realtors. Get to know your business people. Go to your local chamber meetings and their functions and get to know those people and say, hey, I am freelancing. Is there something I can do for you? 9 times out of 10 there is. Everyone's looking for a good writer. And even if that person can write about their own business, they don't have time. It's worth it to them to pay you $50, $100, whatever, to write a small thing for them than it is for them to sit down and do it themselves. So work that local angle. Get some things under your belt. Get your confidence built up. And then you're ready to pursue other markets. So let's say you've done a few local things, or while you're doing those local things, you decide, okay, you want to expand. You want to do more. Where do you find the jobs? Well, there are some really great websites that curate job postings for writers specifically. One of the best ones is freelancewriting.com. They pull feeds, they pull job requests from all over. And every Tuesday they have something called Tuesday Morning Coffee that will come to your inbox. But you can hop on their website. They have tremendous resources. And when I was freelancing in, it was like 2006, one of the first gigs I got that was on a national level was from freelancewriting.com. They've been around that long. They're very good at what they do. Other places you can look, ProBlogger.com. Now, freelancewriting.com pulls pro blogger jobs. It just doesn't pull them all. So you can look at problogger.com. Maybe you can do some blog posts. Maybe there are some companies there that are looking for someone on an ongoing basis. Those are great jobs. Another outlet is somewhere like Indeed.com. If you put in writer or editor, I usually put in both, and work remotely, instead of picking a location, it will pull up people who are looking for freelancers. This could be corporations. A lot of those are corporations. It could be national magazines. You will also notice when you do this, almost every single government agency is looking for writers. Now here's the thing. If you have worked in the federal government, and it doesn't matter where you worked, because you know how the feds work. If you've worked anywhere in the federal government, you have an in, an immediate in. They give you preference. And so you can look through those jobs, almost every agency, from the Border Patrol all the way to the U.S. Patent Office. Single agency, almost, is always looking for freelancers. And if you're familiar with how the government works, those are fabulous because some of those jobs are long-term and ongoing, even though they're remote, and they provide benefits, which is a huge thing for writers. Having someone that can provide you benefits and allow you to work remotely is fabulous. So don't forget to look for those agencies. In addition to governmental agencies, are other agencies that work for the government or with the government, like Los Alamos, National Labs, all of those agencies, defense companies that work with federal agencies. They all need writers too. So don't pass those by if you have any kind of governmental experience whatsoever. The same is true for state governments and municipal governments, county governments. They all need help writing. Maybe even your local lodgers tax board. Maybe if they're looking to put out some tourist information. You never know where those opportunities will arise with governmental entities. And there is a lot of work to be done there. So if you have experience in the area of government, in any level of government, don't forget to look at those and approach them and ask, because sometimes they won't be posted. So approach and ask, is there anything you need done? Is there something I can do? Or at least let them know you do it. So when something comes up, they can call you, or they can send you an RFP, request for proposal, to do the work for them. So don't overlook those opportunities, because some of those can be really great long-term opportunities. Now, just to share a little bit of how it worked for me, I was on freelancewriting.com and a trade magazine, and let's talk a little bit about the differences in magazines. Trade magazines are specific to one vocation or one interest area. Like a trade magazine might be a banking magazine. A trade magazine might be a car magazine or a golf magazine. They're very specific to one industry, okay? A general interest magazine might be Good Housekeeping or AARP, or they have a very, very broad, expansive, millions of people read them. So those are general interest magazine. One of the best places to start are trade magazines, simply because they have a harder time finding freelancers because they pay a lot less, but they also, you tend to use a lot more freelancers. They have a much smaller staff. Now, a lot of these magazines these days are online, but some of them are still print. It doesn't really matter what they are, but as long as they can pay you at least something. When I first started out, I found a listing on freelancewriting.com, and it was for Credit Union Business Magazine. It is a magazine that is specifically for credit unions across the country. So even though it was a trade magazine, it was a national trade magazine, okay? So this was in 2006, and they were offering, I believe it was 30 cents a word, which is not huge, but it's something. It was more than I was getting paid for some local stuff. So I thought, okay, this is a step up, and it's a national magazine. So I started writing for them, and what I did was I pitched them several ideas, because in their ad they said, hey, bring us some ideas. It wasn't super specific. But one of the things you do when you go to possibly pitch an idea to one of these industry magazines is you go and you read that magazine. You look at that magazine. You go through their website. You see what What kind of writing? What kind of articles? What departments do they have? What could you possibly come up with that's going to fit into their editorial scheme? You want to try and match your style to theirs. And so I pitched them 3 different ideas, I believe it was, all in one email. So a very short email. And the editor responded and said, okay, let's go with this one and we're going to try you out. They will do that. They will try you out. Say, okay, can you do this? Can you deliver? You have to deliver on time in full. If you miss one deadline, very important in the magazine world. If you miss a deadline, they won't call you again. That's it. You're fired. So don't miss your deadlines. In fact, turn it in a little bit earlier. Because sometimes they'll want a few changes. They'll want to shorten it, maybe lengthen it, depending on how much advertising they sold in that magazine. So turn it in a little bit early. You want to be the writer who is the easiest for them to work with. And that way, if they have another writer flake out, which happens, they know they can call you short notice and you can produce for them. And those will be extra jobs you get. I've gotten a number of those. So that happens a lot. So don't be one of those writers. Don't flake out. Well, when I approached this magazine, I got the one article. They liked it. And so at that time it was a bi-monthly magazine. So it was every other month. They only produced 6 a year. And so about once a quarter, I would pitch them an idea and they would approve one once a quarter. There was a lot they didn't approve. You get a lot of rejection and you just have to deal with that. But I would pitch them every month. I would pitch them a number of ideas. But then about once a quarter, I would get work. Well, these jobs ended up paying me between $600 and $700 every time I would do one of these articles. And one of the things that I realized early on, because in freelancing, your money's all over the place. I mean, some months you'll have a lot of money, some months you have nothing. It was very, very volatile. And I really wanted to find a way to spread out that cash flow. You know, that's the way you want to do it. You want money coming in every single month. And so I came up with the idea, okay, I need to pitch them a series. They had just gone monthly. And I'd seen them do a few other series in these magazines. And at the time I was writing on HR issues for the C-level executives, for their executives, their CEOs, that sort of thing. And so I thought, okay, I want to pitch them a leadership series that will be every month for a full year. And I want to kick it off with a big name. And so I thought about several different names. And when I pitched it to them, I had 2 or 3 different names of big leadership people. And one of those people was John Maxwell. I'd never talked to John Maxwell. Didn't know him from Adam, other than knowing who he was through his books. Never met him. Never talked to him. Had no in with him at all. But the editor came back and he said, if you can get John Maxwell for the kickoff article, then we will give you the 12-month series. And I did. It took me calling his office a couple of times, asking for 10 minutes of his time. At the time, he happened to have a new book that was coming out on leadership. And I knew he did have a new book coming out. The timing was perfect. He gave me the interview. I recorded it. And by the way, if you do interview people, please do record it. You want proof of what they said. I did record it. I sent that to the editor, and I got a 12-month series. And that is what you want to constantly do as a freelance writer. You want to look for ways to up your game, to create ongoing monthly streams of income, because there will be people you work for that suddenly go out of business. There will be people you work for that change editors and suddenly they've forgotten your name. That happens. And so you want to continually build who you are in their minds. And that way you have this steady, ongoing revenue. Now you might think when you're doing all this freelancing, it really does feel like you're doing it in a void. You're just working yourself to death, but you never know where those freelance gigs might take you. And one of the reasons I brought up the credit union business gig was when I was writing this 12-month series, someone at the credit union national level read some of these articles that I had written. One day I get an email in my inbox and it was an invite to their national conference in Las Vegas to speak. And here I was, talk about feeling like an imposter. I was like, huh, these were just articles I was writing. I didn't plan to go and speak anywhere, but that happened. And so I went. I mean, like, you're going to say no? No. You go, you go. I mean, when someone says, hey, come and speak at our national conference, you go and you figure it out. And I did. And so I could add that to my resume, that I spoke at a national credit union conference. And that goes in addition to writing a full leadership series, interviewing John Maxwell. Every single little thing you do adds to your writing resume. Now, you remember I said you always want to be moving up. It is really amazing how quickly you can move to almost free work for local people to a national level to something like ghostwriting that is big money. It took me less than a year to make that transition. Once I did the series for credit union business, it was kind of a launching pad. I got another job on freelancewriting.com for a man who was working for a publisher, and they were recruiting writers. They needed some writing coaches and ghostwriters to help get some of their book contracts completed. And so he asked me if I wanted to try one. Well, of course. I'd never done it, but I thought, okay, I can do this. I had written fiction books. I knew I could do something book length, which is really important. You don't want to take on a job you can't actually do. And so I did that. And the first book that I did is this one. And it was for a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills who was at that time on Discovery Channel before and after. And I did this book for him. And then I started working for this publisher directly full time. And I did several books and more books. And then I took on a business partner and we grew that part of the business. And we ended up with 10 ghostwriters that were working with us. And we worked as a group. And we worked for 5 different publishers at one time. So that is how you grow it. That is how you go from freelancing as a side gig, which is what I was doing. And once I started ghostwriting, I was able to quit my full-time job and write full-time. Now, once we had worked our ghostwriting business up to a certain level, we also started our own publishing company. And that gave us lots of opportunity. Once you work with several different ghostwriting clients, because these are the people at the pinnacle of their career, you get access to people who can really help you move forward. Well, one of those people was Tom Feltenstein. He's used to be a VP at McDonald's, was for years, was on the original committee that created Ronald McDonald Houses, has a long career as an incredible marketer. Well, I'd gotten to know Tom from the first publisher we worked with. They were friends. I'd gotten to know him, and we had done some work for him and had been out to Florida to his office. And he called one day and he said, okay, I want to prove to some of my clients how much a book can help their careers. Okay. He wanted us to write a book, and he said, I want it to be funny, and I want it to be really provocative, and I want it to be about how to marry for money. Yes, he said that. He wanted to write a book about how to marry for money. He was going to use that as an example to show his corporate clients that no matter what your subject matter is, if you can get people's attention, then you can get incredible media from it. That was his whole point. So Liz, who was my partner, she's very funny, by the way, but Liz and I sat and we created this book in 30 days. We wrote it in 30 days and we called it Lucrative Love. It's funny. It is in your face. It was just such a fun thing to do, and we just whipped it out and created the book for him under our own company and sent it off. And we also helped him create a billboard, because here again, he's a marketer. We helped write a billboard, as we did for numerous clients of his. Billboards are another thing you can write as a freelancer. We wrote a billboard that it featured him, his picture, and it said, have made, have money, need a honey. And it was promoting lucrativelove.com. Well, as it happened, one of the producers from the Jay Leno show was driving down Highway 1 in Florida and saw the billboard. So this book that we spent a whole 30 days on ended up on the Jay Leno show in one of their skits. They used it for one of their gas station skits, where they asked people who are pumping gas a question. And the question was, would you marry for money? It was very funny, got national attention, it proved his point, and it really set us apart as writers. And so that helped us tremendously, getting that national attention. Now, over time, the books we wrote did that. We had clients that were on the Wall Street Journal. We had clients that were on Lou Dobbs. That doesn't happen overnight, but it happened very, very quickly. And that is how easy it is to scale your freelance career. You can go from making peanuts to making six figures in a very short period of time. So it's worth doing, but you always have to be looking toward the next level up. But I'm hoping this video has encouraged you to get out there and maybe start to do some freelancing, earn a little bit of extra money, and don't forget, when you earn that extra money, put it away for retirement. That's what it's all about. Make money, save money, and live well in retirement. Now, if you have enjoyed this content, please subscribe and share this video with someone else that you may think could use it. Thanks so much. See you next video.